Friends, we are here to discuss one of the most important pillars of risk and compliance and IT in the cooperative banking sector today. We are really delighted to have a very strong luminary panel comprising of people who have been there, done that, achieved a lot in the technology and security phase. Let me introduce you to the panel. We have Mr. Ravi Kiran Mankikar, who is going to lead the panel today. Ravi has been a noted luminary CIO of the cooperative banking sector, not just the cooperative, but the entire banking sector in India, being awarded several times by several platforms. Ravi, welcome to FCBA 2020, which is being hosted in 2021 for all the obvious reasons that we all know. Along with them, we have Mr. B. Kannan. Mr. Kannan is the Joint General Manager IT of Repco Bank, again, a very noted bank in South India, one of the most innovative banks from the southern India with a business of over 16,000 crores, which is much bigger than most of the cooperative banks in the country today. And Mr. Kannan has been very innovative in his technology approach. He will share some very interesting insights today too. We also have with us Rohit Singh, who is the CISO of the Arihant Cooperative Bank, another interesting cooperative bank from Maharashtra, which has been the pioneer in adopting core banking way before most of the urban cooperative banks in the country today. Rohit, welcome to FCBA 2020. You are the youngest panelist of this group. And of course, we have the mega bank of cooperative sector and the most interesting and insightful stalwart from the cooperative banking IT world, Milind Varerkar. Milind is the general manager and head of IT of Saraswat Bank, which is the largest cooperative bank in the country. Ravi comes from SVC Bank. He was the former IT head of SVC Bank, which is the third largest urban cooperative bank in the country. And to the icing of the cake of this conversation will be Puneet Bhasin, who is an advocate, has been having a lot of interesting credits in the legal world, has been awarded several times for her interesting contributions to the legal fraternity. So welcome Puneet to this FCBA 2020. Just for all your information, FCBA is the 14th year right now in succession. For last 14 years. We have been having 500 people assembling together for this carnival of cooperative banks, which was started in 2007, just for the purpose of recognizing the cooperative banks.
Thank you, Babu, for the lovely introduction. And I am really looking forward to a really engaging session today with the stalwarts here present in the panel. Well, to set the tone, some of it was said by Babu. The whole industry is undergoing a transformation. And this transformation was triggered, amongst other things, by the lockdown. Now, suddenly we find that the way we were doing things earlier and the way we were doing things now is again undergoing a lot of transformation. And some of it is primarily, where we call the new normal. So when we are looking at the new normal, what it also means is that we are connecting afresh from other locations than where we were usually accustomed to. Now, when we look at banking, here also, I would say there is a drastic shift which is happening across the industry in the normal banking procedures. So most of us have been accustomed to the old normal, which was the branch. And many of us, especially like Saraswat Bank or even SVC Bank, here, we are more than 100-year-old bank, and we have to cater to customers who are spanning 3 or 4 generations. Some of them are, entrenched with branch banking, and some of them are entrenched with digital banking. Now, looking at the way forward and looking at the way the whole industry is moving, today I feel that having good technology is something which is taken for granted. I mean, like nobody now asks you, do you have a mobile phone? Having a mobile phone is something which is now, I think, mundane and routine. So similarly, having good technology to support your business operations is again something which is given considering the business compulsions. But the differentiating factor here is going to be the security. And I'm really thankful to Banking Frontiers that we brought in this kind of a topic where when we are talking of security and especially in the cooperative sector, because in the cooperative sector we are having the kind of outreach where we are looking at the India part, the urban part, and we are also looking at the Bharat part, which is the rural part, and we are also looking at banks which now have been graded into four gradations depending upon their exposure to the payment systems or the digital payment systems, which Reserve Bank has categorized as level 1, level 2, level 3, and level 4. And depending upon their exposures, these banks are expected to implement that kind of a security posture to address their banking needs. And this is one question I will straight off deep dive, and I'll start off with Milinji. That how do you perceive this kind of gradation? Is it helpful to banks or is it helpful to facilitate the kind of comfort which customers and the stakeholders seek in a bank, where a graded approach, depending upon how and what kind of services you are giving to the customers, the implementation of security could be mapped to that? Milinji, your thoughts on this?
Thank you, Ravi, and thank you, Banking Frontier, for giving me this opportunity. Yeah, I mean, the graded approach, depending on the bank's strength and the bank's capability to invest, most importantly, the skill sets that will require to drive this kind of technology and security postures will also be very important, because acquiring those skill sets and retaining them at the cost may or may not be possible for all the banks. So graded approach was necessary, but at the same time, when we are competing in this world in the banking, the customer expectations, if you see, are blurred from the cooperative bank, from the public sector bank, or be private sector bank. The customer demands the kind of services which are on par everywhere.
Right.
So to cater to that, the kind of technology that the banks are required to invest will also have to be complemented by the security that we need to adopt. Because when you're transacting and when you're doing the business on digital, particularly digital platforms, the kind of security is expected to be maintained is same. So there again, the banks on their own will have to take the call whether you want to, though you are graded as level 2 or level 3, whether you want to go right up to level 4. Because at Saraswat Bank, we have taken the decision that we will go right up to level 4. So
Right.
that is what my view.
Thank you, Milind. And looking at, I mean, regardless of the grade of the bank, we also find that recently, especially after the lockdown started, there has been a spate of attempts on banks, and there has been a spate of banks which have really went into losses. Punichi, I wanted your opinion on the legal recourses which are available to banks, because what I find is that many of the banks do not have that kind of a legal support, which to address both the customer needs as well as how to safeguard from the bank itself. So, what are your views on what banks should be doing?
Good afternoon. See, from the perspective of the issue that you raised, how banks can deal with this. Now, during this lockdown and during COVID, the country has seen serious economic issues also. So, you're looking at a lot of joblessness, you're looking at a lot of other issues which have led to online banking frauds. So, the
Right.
reason the banks were always prime targets. why it's all the more there. And today it's not just bank servers which are targets, but it's also endpoint devices of users which are targets. So the more people are using their endpoint devices which are not secure, the more you are getting vulnerable with respect to banking fraud. So it's not always a bank's fault. That's one thing that needs to be understood. Yes, the money goes out and the user doesn't understand how it has happened, but it's not always a bank's fault. So the legal recourse definitely is there, that you can file a case before the banking ombudsman. Apart from that, with the adjudicating officer for recovery of your money as a user. As a bank, your legal recourse is very restricted because somehow you become the bakra. So
Right.
even if the user from his own mistake has lost the money, you're going to be sued. Even if his endpoint security of device is not good and he has lost data, you're going to be sued. Whatever happens, you are the person who's going to be facing front forward whatever happens with respect to accounts in your bank.
Right.
Now, an approach which I have seen a lot of PSUs taking, like honestly, this would be from the year almost 10 or 11 years. We've been associated with Punjab National Bank and multiple other PSUs. And the approach over there has been where they have had a cyber legal panel. So where we've been associated with them, I've been working with them from that duration. And, it's about how to settle the issues of customers also. So a lot of things from a bank's end does not always land up in litigation. So yes, certain cases where litigation is required, yes, the bank has to be defended based on the amount of money.
Right.
But handling, if you have, let's say, 50 million accounts, you definitely are looking at, in today's time, cyber fraud of at least 25 to 30% of those accounts. Handling that much of litigation and money expense for a bank is very huge. So it's very important that you have a cyber legal panel in your bank whose job is, obviously you may not have it in-house because it will be too expensive, but on a retainer model, multiple such models are there wherein, you can even educate your users. Education of users becomes a part of it. New guidelines become a part of it, whichever has to be issued to the users about the new cyber frauds. So if any new fraud comes in, they're informed, okay, don't download these apps, don't do this, don't do that. And tomorrow, if they lose money, at least they can't come back saying that, oh, you didn't tell me that this is the thing happening and, I have lost my money. So litigation for banks should always be, you could say, only in cases above 10 to 15 lakh rupees of loss of a user should banks really get into defending the litigation. On a lot of other levels, a lot of amicable mediation is what works to, you really cannot fight 30% of, let's say, 50 million customers. And you definitely are not wanting to do that and lose customers.
Right. See, one point which I would like to ask you, uh, the cooperative sector being what it is, most of these banks do not have their own setup, okay, for budgetary reasons or skill set reasons or whatever, and they are dependent on some other service provider for either their CBS or their security, etc., etc. Now, when such kind of incidents happen, and like you said, the bank is ultimately responsible for the lapses. But here, if the lapse could be because of some flaw or some lacuna, which is could be attributed to the service provider, then how should the SLAs and how should the recourse happen in such cases?
See, ideally, in such cases, you need to have routine. Big banks do it where we work, that they have routine audits of all their vendors. The entire thing is documented. SLAs
Right.
are rechecked every 6 months to keep in mind what are the new threats in the market that are there. But for a cooperative bank or a bank which is having a limited fund, we would not really be advising you to do that much of vendor checking routinely, quarterly, that much of SLA review, because it's out of your bandwidth at some point. What would be recommended then is whatever are the latest threats in the market that are known, there should be routine, you could say, drive outs which are made to the users. Also, you need to adapt. Like one of the things which I really liked about Repo Bank is like, okay, if they are cooperative, when he was just explaining in our initial introduction, they have not shifted from the branch banking model. Now,
Right.
unless you are genuinely not confident that you can afford and support a very secure digital banking model and you have a full team ready, you have multiple organized. See, I'll tell you, if you decide to set up a team with respect to cybersecurity fully in-house, cyber legal fully in-house, you will not be able to manage the same. The reason being, you have limited professionals in this space and the fee scales are too high if you have to hire. Now, even for retainers, getting such people on board requires funds, requires resources, and requires people to manage them also.
Correct.
So you're looking at more and more people building into your organization. And it's only when you have reached that point that you should venture into digital banking. Offering such products should only happen when you are able to really cater to the entire risks of it also. Your litigation budget is also going to be very high annually.
Right.
So you need to accommodate all those things and then go digital in the banking services that are being offered. But till then, definitely you can update your users about the recent latest threats. You need to have different methods of telephonic updates. There are circulars which should be issued to them via SMS, videos. Like recently, one of the banks we advised was to make animation videos,
Oh, great.
wherein even senior citizens, children, adults, everybody understands what not to do. So these are the simple things cooperative banks can do. A very high end security, only banks who are really going down that route would have to be able to account.
Great. So again, now to continue with the thread, I would like to ask Rohit ji. I mean, given what Puneet ji had said, okay, and a bank again has to take care of its customers. Okay, and when the customer requirements come in, they will be looking at the payment systems, they will be looking at the brand systems, etc., etc. So, how would you, as a CISO, try to give that comfort to the stakeholders that yes, we are secure? And like Puneet ji said, we cannot be 100% secure, or even though we say that we have put in the processes, it would always be something that there would be some chink which could be exploited. So, how do we have that comfort where we try to mitigate our risk portfolio and try to say that yes, we have covered our flanks, and at the same time, we are offering the kind of services which the bank can trust us and can go with us. Over to you, Rohit.
So thank you, Ravi sir and Banking Country for giving the opportunity to speak on this the most interested topic called security. As a bank right now, we are located in Mumbai, and our customer demand is like to be most on the tech savvy. Okay, so our customer mostly come with us. They are not interested to do a branch banking, being a Mumbai-based bank. So from the day one after starting on CBS, and we started developing the digital banking channel and other channel via the UPI or IMPS or internet banking or internet billing. Those things we have looked into it. So what we actually doing is that we are conducting an internal, cyber security awareness program, mostly to the top management to understand what actually going in this particular domain. Because till RBI circular on cyber security not came in picture, nobody have interested on this cyber security domain, including the top management. They are like that, okay, fine, this cyber security is there, but not that level. Now, once the cyber security circular came into picture, we started doing a training program for the top management by outsourcing peoples as well internally. Then we tried to do a training program to our internal staff. Also, with this training program, we are conducting digital banking channel transactions training to the end users to understand what actually happen in digital banking transaction, how to deal with the customer if he's coming with complaint on a digital banking channel. Like say around a customer coming saying that my ATM transaction has withdrawn and I'm not share my card or some details. So in that case, how do you have to deal with the customer? Because certain times you need to understand complete details from the customer, what actually he's saying and what you are understanding. If our end user is able to just justify their complaint or satisfy them with their queries or with their answer, so they also feel relaxed. Okay, fine, they approach a right person rather than to a person whom they is escalating to n number and n number. So we have taken these things like on the basis of a training. We have improved more training on the cyber security programs, and our users are handling it properly.
Yeah, I think we'll come back to you, Rohit ji. I'll just deep dive with Kananji. Kananji, you come from the southern part of the country, and here I think the customer philosophy is the same. Okay, they want the bank, they want banking services, and they want secured banking services. Now, with the kind of uh, customer base which you have, what are the challenges which you face as a CIO, and how you have adopted to the security measures to give that comfort to your customers in your region? Can you just elaborate on that?
Thank you, Ravi sir, and Banking Frontiers for giving this opportunity to meet you all. Um, Ours actually we are yet to be part of the payment system. So all delivery channels all through branch banking only. However, we are yet to open to public through internet banking or mobile banking, other that kind of. Our customers, continuously, we have our loyal customer base, so they have a great demands for those kind of latest technologies. However, for perimeter level security and other security aspects, we have in place in our setup, and we are constantly evolving security postures. And when we upgrade ourselves, maybe from the day one itself, we'll be implementing those kind of facilities. So we are constantly watching our peers how they are working. We are also having some budgetary constraints, and however we have our management and board is very keen on providing secure banking for our clientele.
Right. Now, your bank also, I mean, as a platform, is similar to most of the banks which are there in the other parts of the country. Okay, where they don't have the digital platform,
Yes,
but
yes,
most of them are connected to the internet. Okay,
yes,
for some way or the other,
yeah,
and we have seen that these banks,
yes,
they have to ensure that those internet connections are also secure, because
yes,
then that becomes a conduit for the hackers to get into the system.
yes, yes.
So what precautions would you advise for such banks, though they are not on the digital platform, but they are connected either for ROC upload, or maybe for connecting to the sponsor banks, etc., etc. So how
Uh,
would you advise such banks?
yeah, they can have a smaller kind of IDS, IPS facilities, and some manageable SIEM kind of facilities to mitigate issues arising out of modern day threats. And they can also outsource some of their activities to the SOC providers to safeguard their IT resources.
Great. I'll just take this point with Milinji. When we are talking of SOC services now, and when we are talking of SIEM as a functionality, we find that to implement SOC or to make use of SOC services is quite an expensive proposition. Okay. Now, banks like Saraswat or SVC or Cosmos could be in the bracket who can afford it. But the need for having SOC services, though today, as per the RBI circular, is tilted towards the banks in grade 4. Personally, I would say that all banks should subscribe to SOC, because that would give them the inclination, or what we say, just like we do a pre-check. It is kind of a barometer which will tell them of impending attacks. So, what are your views on this, Milinji? That how should banks look at SOC services, and what should be done to ensure that most of the banks do avail of these services?
Yeah, though RBI has given enough graded approach to implement the SOC service, but as you have put it rightly, banks should look at implementing SOC services. Some of the banks, like as you have mentioned, can go for an in-house SOC with SIEM tool. More importantly, more than investing into technology, you also need to invest into the skill sets which are required to manage this tool, which are required to run your SOC. And acquiring those skill sets could be a challenge even for the bigger banks, acquiring and retaining them. Even for the smaller banks, what they can look at it as a managed service. There are some good agencies who are providing SOC managed service. So you don't need to invest into the technology, you don't need to invest into the skill set, but you also have to ensure that proper SLAs are maintained with those agencies so that you are properly covered. So that kind of approach banks can take, but by and large, banks should look at subscribing to SOC services.
Right. And one point which you just mentioned, and which I think is also very critical in this entire landscape, is incident response management. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, I will take one point from Punitji when she said that you are attacked and you act on it. So you use the SIM as one of the part, to understand that you're being attacked. There could be banks who have been attacked, but who really don't know or they're not aware that they have been attacked. Okay. And the second part, after being attacked, some of the banks really don't know how to go about the remedy. Okay, what should be done next? So, to that extent, incident response containment and incident response management. So, when I talk containment, ensure that the damage is restricted, and the response which is required to be given on that, that also has equal importance, because given the sector in which we work, whenever we have discussion on cyber threats or cyber attacks, I have seen that 99.99% of the banks are reluctant to share information about attacks happening on them, because they feel that either हमारी बदनामी होगी, हमारा reputation loss होगा, or people will lose trust in us, etc., etc. But somewhere, as part of incident response management, would you subscribe to my feeling that there should be sharing of knowledge also, in because other banks can take precautions and learnings from incidents which have happened. Now, why I'm asking you this question, because you do have a good SOC and you would have SIM systems. Okay, so with these kind of learnings, I would like the other banks to take this takeaway from your bank, that how they should handle the incident response and how they should handle the knowledge sharing.
Yeah, incident response, as you put it rightly, incident response containment and to incident management. These are the two different aspects. Containment, of course, you are able to contain with the use of technology up to a certain extent. But when the incident happens, is how do you respond to that incident? So, as part of our cyber security framework, we have set up an incident response team. We have a escalation matrix defined into that. So if any incident if happens, then the incident response team will get into the action. And this team is comprising of the team from IT as well as from our information security and risk management department. So it's a mix of these three who are part of the IRT. As far as sharing of knowledge, it is important that you share the incident with the so that you also are part of, like, we have subscribed to IB card from IDRBT, so where we get to know what incidents are happening into the entire ecosystem, and you can also upgrade your knowledge based on that.
Right. And this, I think, is a good takeaway, that subscribing to such services which are available.
And regulatory requirement is also there that you need to share it with C-site of RBI if an incident happens. But subscribing to services like IB card can help, and they are at nominal cost.
Correct. So again, Rohit ji, taking this forward, when we talk of incidents and we talk of management or containment, it also reflects on awareness. Okay, so awareness is at both sides. From the bank side, where they have to be aware, and recently the Reserve Bank has come out with guidelines on incident uh, management and incident response. How you should go about it. And one of the things which is very critically mentioned there is that you have to be able to identify incidents. Okay. Now, when you're identifying incidents, it is both sides. One, you take precautionary measures to stop that incident from happening to the best extent possible. And second, make the stakeholders, now stakeholders means from the within the branch, within the management and customers, to know about the threats. So how would you go about, or how would you advise banks to go about creating this kind of an awareness?
Uh, it- as you said, as Milind sir said, that we do have an incident response team, and we do cater those type of incident. But I've seen so many banks just have an incident response team or policy, but they don't have that kind of a staff or persons who actually handle those things. And in case of an incident take place, okay, after mitigating that particular risk, once we approach to the management saying that this kind of incidents has happened, so mostly the management is denying to share those things with the customers. Okay, even we want, because management is not in that position to share those details with say around to the customer, but they do want to share with the RBI or certain for their knowledge. And we actually want the RBI should set up such kind of institution where this kind of things should be reported, and those can be forwarded to all the UCB banks for their knowledge, by keeping the name as a hidden, because the name should not be known, because every bank right now fear about their damage of their names after this PMC and other banks cases. So I think not things to not to be disclosed to the customer, but yes, this can be disclosed to the banks, where they can that can be a learning sessions to them. Ki this kind of things are happening in the area market, and that can be tackled. But it should be case to case basis on the study purpose. And as Milind sir said, still banks fears to share these information due to the reputation issues, because customer is now not feeling safe to have their deposits on a cooperative bank after certain incident. So this is also one of the case where now banks is not ready to share those information to the customer, by just there should not be any reputation losses to the bank.
Right. Kananji, coming back to you, there could be cases where there are some products or there are some services which you or banks like us
Yes.
are
Yeah.
not able to do ourselves. Okay.
Yes.
And there could be a possibility that some of the services are outsourced.
Yes.
Okay. How would you advise? What precautions need to be taken whenever we think of outsourcing, A, the technology part, and B, the security part, because both go hand in glove.
Yes. Uh, when we are outsourcing services, we have to be more precise on our SLAs. SLA part, we have to be very when we coming down, when we writing down our SLAs, we have to be very careful with all our deliverables, and then we have to stick to the SLAs. We have to we have to talk to the vendors and ensure that we have to closely monitor the performance of the vendors, how they are providing service, whether they are as per the SLAs or breaching the SLAs. When we when and then also we have to put we have to be strict on the non-disclosure agreements. When we have to when we are engaging outsourcing services, we have to be careful about what kind of people they are engaged with, and whether they are competent, whether they have always their integrity levels, and those areas we have to be very careful, and we have to while identifying the vendor itself, we have to concentrate on those areas, so that we can safely get services from outsourced vendors.
That's right. And I think Reserve Bank has taken cognizance of this. And in their circular, they have clearly mentioned that banks are expected to do due diligence of the vendors also.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they have to find out the capability of the vendor. They have to find out whether they are capable enough to handle your kind of
Requirements. Yeah.
and do background checks also. So this
Yes.
is a good takeaway from your side,
Yeah.
that banks should be doing this.
Yes.
Okay, we had a very interesting session, and each one gave a different perspective to the entire session. So a one-liner from each participant. What would you say to the audience is security is dot dot dot. Milinji, we'll start with you.
Security is paramount. Security is necessary. Be alert and do due diligence, as Kandanji has put it rightly. If you are outsourcing, if you are taking the services from outsourced vendors, proper due diligence should be taken. But do take security very seriously.
Rohitji.
I think there's time where people will write down their bank name with the security is what they have implemented. I think there will be time in future when the banks should take, the people should also take care of the security as very serious, and when the banks should take now, because this is the one, area where people now need to think about it. The more the digital is increasing, the risk is already increasing with the same amount. So we have to very aware about that, all the security aspect which is going in right now in the market.
Right. Kananji, your thoughts.
We have to put security first.
Right.
While giving a services, new services, when you are venturing into new area, we have to first think security. Based on that security posture, we have to design our product and services in a manner so that we can ensure the CAA, like confidentiality, integrity, and availability of services.
Right.
This is my.
And finally, to wrap up, I started off this session saying that we are in the new norm, the new normal. Okay. And in the new normal, in Corona times, there is some what we say discipline which we follow. We wear mask, we wash our hands, we maintain social distancing. That has become the way of life now. I mean, nobody has to tell us. We have ingrained it in ourselves. So similarly, for security, don't share passwords. Be careful. Ensure that you don't disclose private information in public forums. If we adopt these simple things, just like we are doing it for the corona, I think we will be in a better world to live. And I think we should be contributing our might to make our banks more secure. Thank you very much. It was really lovely having all of you, and it was great with this session. Thank you, Milinji. Thank you, Rohitji. Thank you, Kananji. Thank you,
Thank
Punitji.
you.
And thank you, Banking Frontiers, for this lovely session.
Thanks a lot,
Thank you.
Ravi, for steering such a wonderful conversation.